Good afternoon. It's early April. Before we get going on the thing, I want to address this to the members of Eastern Connecticut Beekeepers Association. I mean, I know that it's tough times right now. All of our meetings, essentially into the summer, look like they've been canceled or will be canceled. So we're trying to come up with some videos that would help with the early spring management that we're missing out on the field demos that we usually do. So we're here at my home apiary, and I've got some hives that were overwintered. I started feeding pollen substitute around the 1st of March. All of these hives had good amounts of stores in them going into the winter, so I've had to do minimal syrup feeding. But obviously, if you have low stores, you should have been syrup feeding. So we're going to go through these hives. I haven't gone through them yet this year. I know they're all doing well, and we're going to prepare them for spring growth is really what we're looking for. So I've lit my smoker already, and I'm going to come around to the front, smoke my hive. If you notice, if you're looking here, the entrance to these hives, they still have the winter mouse guards on them. As soon as I'm done working with them, I'll remove the mouse guards, and depending upon the strength of the colony, I may end up taking out the entrance reducers too. All right, so we got this hive is open, ready to open up. Take off the cover. This is the insulation panel that I put on this hive last winter. We'll no longer need it, so I'm going to just remove it. I'm going to look down inside the hive and see what's going on here. Okay, so here's the inner cover. Take that off. If I look down in here, the first thing I'm always looking for is I want to see what I think we got for food stores. I can see several frames that have capped honey. So let's go further down and see what's going on. Always good to work your lower box first. I'm going to go right through this thing with a deep clean spring cleaning on this hive, and I'll show you a few frames as we go. Okay, so the first thing I notice here looking in this hive is that there's drone brood in between the boxes. I've got a broken frame here. Looks like the top bar is broken. May have to do something with that. A little smoke. I'm looking in here. I see a little nectar being stored, so the maple trees are blossoming. There's a little nectar. That's always a good sign. One trick. When you work a hive of bees, take the top box, set it aside. Start with the lower box, because all those field bees, they tend to be a little grumpier. Those are the ones that are going to be coming back to this hive. So if you work that, get ready. Get rid of the work in the lower box. Right now, I try to take out these frames in pairs if I can. This is the first frame against the wall. There's lots of honey in it. It looks like there could be some fresh nectar being stored. I've got drones. The colony is building nicely. What I'm looking for here is I'm looking to see where the brood nest starts to begin. And as you can see right here, I've got lots of brood in this colony. And there's capped brood, there's young brood, there's pollen being stored on the edge of it. This colony is functioning very well. Looks like it's got a good queen. Just going to set these frames aside. I want to get all the frames out of this box. More brood, lots of drones. More brood. If you're keeping track, that's 6 frames of brood so far. This is 7, 8, and a solid frame of pollen. These bees are coming along. You wouldn't believe how much pollen is in this hive when these bees have had almost a week of no pollen collection. So this must have come in yesterday. It's just amazing what these bees can bring in when they when they've got a good flying weather and a good pollen. It's just amazing. I see no reason to be giving this colony any supplemental pollen substitute at this time. There's lots of it coming in. So I've got the boxes empty now. Looks like I had closed this off in the wintertime. Closed off the screen bottom board. And if you look, there's all sorts of detritus. There's a little lesser wax moth in the bottom of here. Good time to get this cleaned up. These wax moths mean nothing down on the bottom, but the bees have dropped the trash to have gone through. It's just rested on this piece of foam that I put on the screen bottom board. So I'm just going to set this aside and I'll scrape it off in the dumpster before I put the bees away. So what I want to do now is I want to scrape the rabbits frame rest in this hive. Just scraping where the frames go up against the box. There's very little garbage on this bottom board here, if you can see. There's really no need to do anything more with this. One thing I don't want to do, I don't want to remove the varnish of propolis that the bees have put on the box. They put that on there for a reason, and I leave it there. The only place I remove propolis is from the frame rests where I'm going to have a problem getting the frames in and out. So I clean that up. Good population of bees in here. Taking off the entrance reducer. So what I'm trying to accomplish here is I want to put all of the brood down inside the lower box. So I just pulled 8 frames of brood out of this hive. And so there really is no reason to put any of the frames from the upper colony, or the upper hive body, down into this lower box because we're already there. The bees have moved down into the lower box. Maybe it's because there's so much honey up above. That's where all the room that they have is. We will deal with that at a little later time. So what I like to do when I'm setting up a hive, if I'm going to reverse it, let's say the brood was up above, I do like to see at this time of the year a frame of honey against the wall. So I'm taking out the feeder in this hive and I'm going to set it aside. We're not going to need it for the time being. We're moving right into swarm control right now. So that's good. Got the box cleaned up. We're going to reassemble this hive, get it ready so the queen has as much room as possible in this hive for expansion. Right now they're in a lot of brood and she's laying 1,200 eggs a day. In 2.5 to 3 days she's filled up a couple of frames. So we got to get this together. Here's a frame of pollen against the wall. I always put a food frame against the wall, and then I'm going to add solid frames of brood back into this colony. I want to concentrate the full frames in the bottom. Everybody's wondering, well, have you seen the queen? I don't care about seeing the queen. We've seen where she's been. That's all we need to know here. So I've got these frames put back here. I've got room for one more. I'm going to go up into my top box where I know there's a little bit of brood left. Here's a frame. It's got a lot of honey, a lot of brood. It's a beautiful frame. Down you go. And then we're going to put the second box right on top. So we looked in this box here, and we've still got some brood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to consolidate the brood right into the center of the upper box. Then I'm going to give her a few extra combs. I've taken the feeder out. I'm going to give her extra combs right outside of the brood nest to walk right into. And it looks to me, it's unbelievable. It looks to me like there is some maple nectar coming in. So there's plenty of room here. These are frames that are not completely drawn out. So I've got my, I just got stung. I got my frames here that are going to go either side of the brood nest. Got room for one more frame. Partial frame of honey against the wall. This hive is ready to go. I'm going to put my inner cover back on with the, if you look, there's a small space on one side and a larger space on the other. The larger space we use for added ventilation in the wintertime. We don't need that now. I don't want to violate the bee space, so I'm putting that back down here. We're not going to put the insulation back on because it's unnecessary. So here we go. This hive here is growing very quickly. So what I would look for in the future on this hive is that in a week or 10 days, this hive is going to be ready to give me a divide. There's going to be no more room in this hive. We don't want them to swarm. So we're going to take the swarm out by going in here and taking out 3 or 4 frames of brood, putting empty combs back in, and then taking that 3 or 4 frames of brood, adding a mated queen to it. We'll make a nucleus colony out of that. At that same time, if there's nectar coming in, I would add 2 honey supers as well. So that's kind of in the nutshell the thing you should be doing at this time of the year.